So what happened was he was cutting weight. If you saw him yesterday, he was very, very lean already, and he should have come in on weight. He started to cut weight, and you know, he started locking up and cramping and all the things that happen when you're bad, that are from a bad cut.
Dana White just made a ruthless move, cutting multiple fighters from the UFC roster, and the timing couldn't be more suspicious. We will dive further in the video of who got the axe, but meanwhile, two of the biggest names in MMA history, Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz, just won a multi-million-dollar lawsuit that could change how fighters do business forever. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you won't miss what comes next, and let's dive right in. Imagine waking up and finding out your job is gone, your name is off the list, and the whole internet is asking why. That's what just happened to several UFC fighters after Dana White cleaned house. At the same time, two of the most famous names in MMA, Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz, walked out of arbitration with millions on paper after saying a boxing promoter never paid them. Those two stories might seem separate, but together they show something bigger. Power in the fight game is moving fast. When a promoter can cut you in a day, and two veterans can fight back in court and win, it makes every fighter think twice about where the real leverage is. Fans are already arguing about whether these cuts were performance-based, money-based, or both. And there's a new question too. If Masvidal and Diaz can force payments, what stops the next fighter from trying the same? That's the energy around MMA right now, loud, tense, and changing. And the details behind each headline make it even wilder, because the fallout doesn't end with a press release or a tweet.
Do you think we'll be seeing you fighting regularly now?
The reason I was off is because everybody sucked. There was nobody to fight. Jorge Masvidal had a good last fight.
It keeps rolling into the next week, and the next card, and maybe the next set of contracts. But that wasn't the whole story. Jorge Masvidal's situation is simple on the surface and messy underneath. He says he fought, he promoted, he showed up for the event like a pro, and then the promised money never arrived. So he took it to arbitration, which is like court but faster, and run by a neutral decision maker. The arbitrator looked at the deal, the messages, the timelines, and sided with Masvidal. The award number was huge, millions for work already done. Masvidal didn't flex or brag, he sounded relieved. If you followed his career, you know he's lived the hard parts of fight life. Short notice calls, tough matchups, late nights selling a fight so people actually watch. Getting a win like this outside the cage is rare. It shows that contracts, when written clearly, still matter. It also shows that fight promotion doesn't end when the bell rings. There's marketing money, back-end money, and all the will pay later promises that sometimes never show up.
Alright, so this is now 1-1, but you have so many different options, right? You have mixed martial arts, you have boxing, possibly something else. Do you know how you would want to do the rubber match with Nate Diaz? Where would you like to have it?
Definitely boxing. I guess call me a sore loser, and I'd want to do boxing, and if he wants to do MMA after that, we could do it, but definitely want to do boxing over everything, you know?
Masvidal pushed back. He got his paper recognized. And when one veteran proves it can be done, the locker room notices. Yet as big as that is, it gets even louder when another star wins the same kind of battle. Nate Diaz's case echoes Masvidal's but has its own twists. Diaz isn't the type to talk in fancy legal phrases. He's as straightforward as it gets. We had a deal, pay what you owe. His arbitrator also agreed, awarding him a bigger number and even pointing to the promoter's top person to cover a chunk of it. That adds pressure, because it's not just a company that might be on the hook, it could be the person who ran it. For Diaz, this is more than money, it's respect. He built his name over years of hard fights, a cult fan base, and moments that went viral without trying. If he says a promoter crossed the line, his fans believe him. The award backs that up. But here's where it gets interesting. Both awards still need a federal judge to approve them. That step is usually a formality, but not always.
Stat line showed that Jorge was up on all the strikes landed. If they said Jorge won, I would have been like, yeah. I mean, they said Nate won. I could see that perspective too. It was such an evenly matched fight. I don't know. It's a fucking draw. Huh?
The promoter could try to delay. They could say they can't pay. They could try to settle for less. Diaz knows that. He's played long games before. He can wait. He can push. And if this goes through, it sends a message to every promoter watching. Promises have a price, and fighters are finally collecting. But even that doesn't explain the timing of what happened inside the UFC. When people talk about Dana White cutting fighters, they often picture one reason: losses. That's part of it, but it's not the whole picture. The roster is huge. Cards need to stay strong. Matchmakers plan months ahead. If a fighter misses weight, or loses 3 in a row, or struggles to make it to the cage, it adds up. On the recent cut list, you saw names who had tough runs, missed marks, or stalled out. One had back-to-back defeats that took the shine off the hype.
there's a conversation after the weigh-ins now of who missed weight. It's not a matter of, hey, did anybody miss weight? And it used to be when somebody would miss weight, this would be the headline breaking news. 10%, that hurts. That's gonna hurt anybody, 10%. It's gonna hurt, but you also understand where that's a varying scale?
Another couldn't manage the scale and the schedule. One more had a long layoff and didn't look the same on return. These are harsh facts, and the UFC is a harsh business, but the speed of the cuts stood out. Fans barely finished talking about the last card before the exit started. That fast trigger tells you the company wants flexibility. It also tells you they're thinking about a crowded year with big names moving weight classes, chasing belts, and asking for main event money. If you're not rising, you're replaceable. That's the truth fighters feel the minute a number pops up on their phone. And still, there's a different kind of toughness happening at the very top of the sport. Alex Pereira's name drops into this storm like a sledgehammer. He doesn't talk much, but when he does, it's sharp. He hears talk about injuries, excuses, and what could have happened if someone was fully healthy.
Alex Pereira kicked my leg. I was like, this shit hurts.
That dude has the weirdest leg kicks. They're so sneaky.
My cousin had the greatest analogy for Pereira. He goes, he is Thanos, literally just collecting stones.
He shrugs. He says he's fought through worse. Broken ribs, sore everything. Welcome to the club. That's his attitude. He even told people he'd show scans and records if it came to it. Pereira's point is simple. This is a hard job. Everyone is banged up. The ones who win are the ones who show up and handle it. Fans love that mindset because it feels old school. It also turns up the heat on anyone eyeing his belt. If you sign his name, you better be ready to carry weight, pain, and pressure. The man just keeps taking out elite strikers, and when he faces grapplers, he stays composed, fights off the cage, stands back up, and keeps his hands heavy. That aura he's building isn't just about knockouts. It's about being unshakable. And that aura matters as the UFC makes tough calls on who gets cut, who gets pushed, and who gets paid. Which leads to another part of the story, how the business is changing under the hood.
It's a super fight, but what's it for? When you get those great names like him and Jones, you want it to be for something. So yes, 205-pound fight between him and John Jones will be amazing. And it gets rid of the idea that Jones is afraid of Tom Aspinall.
Behind the scenes, the fight world runs on paperwork most fans never see. Contracts, options, media rights, bonuses, and a maze of clauses that decide who fights when and for how much. When a fighter like Masvidal or Diaz wins an award against a promoter, people say, that's boxing, not the UFC. True, but it still shifts the mood. Fighters talk, managers compare notes. If a side gig can land you a headache in a courtroom, you think twice. If the big league keeps moving the lineup, you keep your phone on and your weight in check. The UFC wants stability on fight week and fireworks on fight night. That means they reward the ones who make it easy to do business and who deliver. Miss weight, miss media, miss moments, you get less runway. Land a viral finish, show up clean, push tickets, and the matchmakers remember you when a main co-main needs a savior. It's not personal, it's production. The company runs on momentum. So when both the legal wins and the roster cuts make noise at the same time, everyone in the building starts calculating. And if you think that's the end, you haven't seen how fast the next twist can hit. There's always a wild card in MMA. A promoter might say they can't pay. A judge could change a number. A fighter could get hurt and blow up a pay-per-view. A rival steps in and steals the moment. That's why teams build backup plans. If a promoter tries to delay a payout, the fighter can push for enforcement. If a company tries to cut corners, the athlete's camp can go public and let the fans do the pressure. On the other side, if a fighter keeps missing weight or backing out late, the company moves on and gives the slot to someone hungry and reliable. The machine learns and adapts. For the fans, this is what makes MMA so addictive. It's chaos that somehow lands right on the buzzer every Saturday night. You tune in for one story and get 5 more you didn't expect. That's what this moment feels like. We came for a clean headline about cuts and court wins, and ended up with a bigger view of how power moves through the sport. And one more name keeps threading through those power lines. Justin Gaethje hearing that he hits the hardest from a legend isn't a trophy he can hold, but it tells you where the bar is. He laughs, says it's cool, and then reminds everyone he still lost that night. That's why fans respect him. He never hides from the truth. Hearing that a quarter of a country tuned in to watch a single fight shows how big MMA has become and how much pressure sits on one fighter's shoulders. That kind of spotlight builds stars and breaks nerves. It also changes paydays, matchups, and who gets the call when a champion needs a dance partner. When Gaethje or anyone at that level speaks, younger fighters listen. They hear the message. Your hands can be dynamite, but the scoreboard matters more. Wins open doors, losses close them, moments keep you in the room, and while that sounds simple, it's hard to live. The cut list proves it, the court wins prove it, the schedule never waits. which is why even the broadcast booth can become part of the story when the event crosses the world. When the UFC goes to places like Abu Dhabi, the team shifts, the booth changes, you hear a new voice breaking down a scramble, catching a setup, or calling a knockout as it lands. That fresh sound can spark debate, but it also shows the scale of the product. The show is bigger than one person. It's a world tour with storylines flying from city to city. Rules get discussed. Old laws get dusted off and pushed toward a vote. If certain regulations move forward, you could see new boxes promoters have to check, new protections fighters can claim, and new ways the business must operate. Some people cheer that, others worry it slows things down. Either way, it sets the table for the next era. Because when you stack changing commentary teams, shifting legal guardrails, and a hyperactive schedule, you get an ecosystem that rewards the ones who adapt fastest. Fighters who keep their weight right, stay healthy, and say yes at the right moment will keep winning spots and checks. Those who don't will be watching from home. And speaking of watching from home, one rivalry that started in the gym is now spilling into the open. Gym stories used to stay in the gym, not now. Now, a small shove in sparring becomes a clip online. A rude comment in a group chat becomes a headline. When a champion hears someone crossing lines about a teammate's home or culture, it doesn't fade away. It sticks. And the next time those two share space, the mood changes. That's what we're seeing with certain top names who used to train together. One says the other had to be careful after a spat. Another says the conversation was misunderstood. It's messy, but it also sells. Fans want real beef, not scripted trash talk. The trick is keeping it from spilling into something dumb outside the cage. Commissions watch. Teams watch. Sponsors watch. Fighters who keep it professional while still bringing heat to fight week are the ones who last. That's why you'll hear calm words in interviews and then see a storm in the cage. It's controlled rage, and it wins. If that balance holds, we'll get a matchup that answers all the talking in one night. And while strikers and wrestlers argue about who's better, another style clash is lining up that could change a division's future. When a clean technical striker meets a pressure-heavy grappler, the first clinch decides the mood. If the striker slips free and lands, the grappler has to reset. If the grappler locks the body, the striker has to survive the first drag to the mat. That's why a lot of people are asking whether one of the sport's best strikers can stop a champion's chain wrestling for 5 straight rounds. Some say yes, pointing to recent fights where takedowns got stuffed and striking carried the day. Others say no, because the champion's timing is too sharp and his grip too sticky. The truth is somewhere in the grind. You can't hide your lungs, your balance, or your heart. That's why a few veterans are giving credit to those who move up in weight and still chase gold. They know what it takes to jump divisions. You carry less comfort and more risk. If the striker can keep the fight standing through round 3, the power shots start to tell. If not, the mat slows everything, and the clock becomes the enemy. Either way, someone's stock will explode. And that brings us back to the bigger picture we started with. Put it all together and you get a sport that never stays still. Fighters win in the cage and, sometimes, in court. Promoters build cards and then rebuild them again after injuries, misses, and last-minute switches. Champions call out super fights. Prospects try to skip the line with highlight reel finishes. Veterans defend their names and their checks. Through it all, fans demand answers. Why were these fighters cut? Will those awards be paid in full? Who's next for the champ? The only honest answer is that it depends on health, on timing, on signatures, and on who shows up ready when the music hits. Dana White's roster moves send a warning. Masvidal and Diaz's legal wins send a signal. Pereira's iron focus sends a chill through anyone who wants his belt. And the rest of the lineup, they're taking notes. The next big story could start with a missed scale, a short notice phone call, or a judge's stamp. That's the fight world right now. One door closes, another kicks open, and the noise never stops. Stick around, because the next twist is already on its way. What we're seeing right now in MMA isn't just another round of news, it's a turning point. Fighters are realizing they have more power than they thought. Promoters are learning that broken promises come with real consequences. And the UFC is showing it's willing to make tough calls to keep its roster sharp. From Masvidal and Diaz standing up in court and getting paid, to Dana White trimming the lineup and keeping the machine moving, every move feels bigger than the last. It's the kind of moment that reshapes the sport from the inside out. The next few months could decide who rises, who gets cut, and who dares to fight the system itself. And if history tells us anything, it's that this sport never stays quiet for long. The next headline could drop tomorrow, a surprise comeback, a shocking release, or a deal that changes everything. So don't blink, because you'll want to be here when it happens. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay locked in. The fight inside the cage is one thing, but the battle outside of it is only getting started.